as we get started. So, good evening and welcome to Kiwanis Let's Talk. It's Thursday, February 25th. I want to know where the month of February went. It's
Went in the fan.
over now. Several of us are just finished up the Equity Excellence class, and that flew by, and I think that's what kind of flew us by was the having that class and looking forward to it every week. So I think that's where we put ourselves with this. But want to welcome everyone. My name is Sue Peterson. I'm with the Michigan District of Kiwanis. I believe this is session number 45 or 47. We've continued to do all these programs. It's been great. We're booked through,
Yeah.
actually booked well into September. At this point, actually, I'm already booking into October for our programs. Next week we have with us John Griffiths, who is with the Marquis company. Marquis is the company that produces our Kiwanis International Conventions and our Key Club Conventions, Circle K Conventions. And he's going to come on and talk to us about virtual meetings. I know a lot of our clubs are doing virtual meetings and things like that. So here's a great opportunity to learn from the experts, as I like to say, having worked with Griff and his team for probably about 15 years. They know their stuff now, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to learn from the best. So he'll be with us next week. But tonight we're very honored to have with us Jennifer Chaves, who is with the California, Nevada, Hawaii Children's Fund. And many of you know that many districts have district foundations. This is the Kiwanis Children's Fund that they have transitioned. And she joined the fund in July of 1999 as their part-time administrative assistant. A year later, she began working full-time for the Children's Fund, and 2 years later was promoted to the position of Pediatric Trauma Program Coordinator. And for those of you that don't know, they have a very successful pediatric trauma program there, and having been visited there, it's amazing what they have. So in her capacity, Jennifer acted as a liaison between the CNH Children's Fund and a select group of children's hospitals collaborating together to reduce childhood injuries and deaths. She also researched childhood injury prevention topics and kept current with latest data, trends, and best practices, and promoted childhood injury prevention to Kiwanis members in the 3-state region of the district, providing resources, suggestions, and ideas to clubs interested in sponsoring an injury prevention service project. In 2012, she took on the added responsibilities as the coordinator of development. In this capacity, she oversaw the production of their public fund relations and marketing materials, including the complete overhaul of their website. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, please do so. In 2015, she became the executive director of the Children's Fund and oversees the day-to-day operations, working with the Children's Fund board, ensuring that all their fundraising initiatives and programs are in alignment with the mission and the goals of the organization. Kiwanis has been a part of Jen's life even before she began to work for the organization. She was a Key Club member in high school and started a Circle K club while in college. In 2004, she joined Kiwanis, making her a third-generation Kiwanian. She is married with 3 children, 15, 13, and 9. And in 2017, her younger son expressed an interest in starting a K-Kids club at his elementary school. Together, they established the club, recruited members, and held several service projects and a successful fundraiser that first year. So truly a Kiwanis family. With that, Jennifer, we want to thank you for being with us tonight. We'll turn the program over to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So I do have a PowerPoint. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Let's see. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good. Okay. So as Sue said, we're going to focus tonight on our pediatric trauma program. But I did want to give just a quick little background of the Children's Fund. And just to let you know that our Children's Fund was established in 1965 following the devastating floods in the area of Klamath, which is in Northern California. Our mission is to build a better future for children. And we fulfill that mission by providing grant funding to our Kiwanis clubs and our SLP clubs, as well as some partner hospitals. We also provide scholarships to our SLP members. We have a robust leadership training program for our SLP members as well. And then, of course, our pediatric trauma program, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. So how did it come about? Well, recognizing the serious need for education and training in the areas of pediatric trauma and injury prevention, the Foundation Board established the Pediatric Trauma Program in 1994. That same year, the House of Delegates voted overwhelmingly to support this new program as the major emphasis of the district. As the program grew throughout the 2000s, the district's support was reaffirmed at the House of Delegates, And they've committed to ensuring that the pediatric trauma program remains the major emphasis of the County Law District. So the mission of our program is pretty simple. It's to develop projects which will reduce the number of children in our district who are killed or injured by trauma. And I want you to notice that I use that word trauma, not the word accident, and we'll get back to that in just a minute. Right, so why pediatric trauma? Of all the programs that are out there, why would our board select pediatric trauma as its major focus? Well, I think one of the reasons is that unintentional injury remains a leading cause of death for children 14 and under in the United States. Each year in the US, 8,000 families lose a child due to a preventable injury. More than 225,000 children are hospitalized annually due to a preventable injury. And then also 9 million children are treated annually in emergency departments again because of a preventable injury. But I believe that the main reason why we selected pediatric trauma as our major focus is that studies indicate that 90% of these injuries can be prevented through education or regulations. And that's what I meant by that injuries are not accidents. When you refer to something as an accident, that kind of establishes that there's nothing you could have done to prevent that. So for example, referring to a car crash as an accident kind of implies that there was nothing that you could do to control that, when in fact, that more often than not, there are things that you could have done to prevent that crash. Well, the same holds true for most common what we call accidents in the home. So for example, a child who suffers a brain injury because they weren't wearing a helmet, or a child who suffers broken bones or worse and they stumble down the stairs because there were no safety gates present, or a child who needlessly drowns in a swimming pool because there were no fencing or alarms present around the pool. So injury prevention is based on the principle that injuries are in fact preventable, they are not inevitable. So how do we address this program or address this need in our district? Well, early on, we established partnerships with 6 children's hospitals. Originally, it was 3 children's hospitals. That would be UCF Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland, Rady Children's Hospital, and Loma Linda University Children's Hospital. Eventually, as the program grew, we expanded our partnership, and we now include Valley Children's Hospital, as well as Renown Children's Hospital, which is in Nevada, and Kapiolani Medical Center, which is in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we truly have this partnership across the entire 3-state district. And we utilize their knowledge and their expertise to develop projects that we can take back to our Kiwanis Club so that they can then get the message out to their communities. And in return, we invite our partner hospitals to apply for grants annually. And they use these grants to support or create new community outreach programs which address injury prevention. They use these grants to provide funding to train their doctors and nurses and first responders in advanced pediatric training. And they also might use these grant funds to purchase specialized medical equipment because children are not just little people. So their needs are vastly different than an adult's need. And that includes the equipment that we would use on a child in a pediatric emergency as well. And the next I want to share with you several examples of what our partner hospitals use these funds for. So for instance, UCF Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland, as I mentioned, was one of our original partner hospitals. They primarily use their grant funding for community outreach programs. These innovative resources, which are, you see a little bit of them pictured on the screen here, these are 100% funded by Kiwanis. Without Kiwanis funds, none of these programs would exist. So what I want to highlight for you here is a few of their key programs. The first one is the Keeping Safe from Injury booklet. That's a booklet that they originally established in English and Spanish. And then now, thanks to Kiwanis funds, we're able to translate that book into 7 different languages. And it provides how-tos and quick little tips for children and parents as well. The other resource there is a starter kit for children with special needs. And this is a comprehensive publication that is designed to help guide families through the complicated maze of agencies and forms and guidelines and terminologies when they have children with special needs. Another one of the resources here is the Pediatric Injury Prevention Resource for Healthcare Professionals. And this provides anticipatory guidance to pediatric nurses. And then finally, the other one that I have pictured there, this one over here, is a 16-month calendar that provides life-saving injury prevention tips each month. Again, this one is produced in English and Spanish. And then they also produced a second version of the calendar for specifically families for children with special needs. And then the last one right here is this little baby here. So they also use grant funds to purchase these sleep sacks so that every child that leaves that hospital leaves with a sleep sack, which then provides them a safe option rather than using blankets, which you should never do with infants. You provide them the sleep sack so that they can sleep safe and sound. Oakland Children's Hospital also is able to support some of their patients directly through donations of cribs and car seats, which are also purchased with Kiwanis funds. And this little one here, this is Jackson. She was born at UCS Children's Hospital at 28 weeks. And remember, a full-term baby is 48 weeks. So needless to say, she had a lot of health issues when she was first born. She weighed just 2 pounds and 9 ounces. And she spent nearly 11 months in their NICU department, just gaining strength and getting stronger in order to be let home. But meanwhile, while she was in the NICU, her mom, who's a single mom, was also raising her teenage sister at the time. And because of the length of time that Jackson was in the hospital, mom lost her job and then eventually lost her house and had to move in with family members about 2 hours away. So needless to say, mom didn't have a lot of resources. And when Jackson was released from the hospital, mom wasn't able to provide, she didn't have the money to provide a car seat or a crib. So through Kiwanis funds, the hospital was able to provide a car seat so Jackson can travel safely back to her new home. And she has a crib now where she sleeps safely. And then these are 2 more families that were helped with Kiwanis funds, again, from Oakland Children's Hospital. This little guy here is Fosne. He was born full term and transferred to the hospital after it was discovered that his intestines had not formed correctly and that they were obstructed. This resulted in severe vomiting that, if left untreated, would result in his death. His surgery was successful. However, his mom, like Jackson's mom, didn't have the resources to purchase a crib or a child safety seat for him. Mom was young, she was only 20. She was new to America and dad was still back home in Africa. So she really didn't have a lot of resources here, didn't have a lot of people to rely on. She was living with an auntie, but again, didn't have the resources. So she was just planning to co-sleep with Fosne when he was released from the hospital. The hospital learned of this and they provided a crib to her as well as a child safety seat. And then this other one over here, this is Mariana. She was born full term and she was home for about a month before she had sudden severe vomiting. And they discovered that she had also a blockage. And so she was transferred to UCSF Children's Hospital for surgery, where they were able to remove the bowel obstruction. Her parents were both young and they already had a 20-month at home. They were co-sleeping with the 20-month-old and had planned to co-sleep with Mariana when she was released from the hospital as well. And they recognized that was not, the ideal situation for that family, especially with the 20-month-old. They were concerned that the 21-month-old would then fiddle with the medical equipment that had to go home with Mariana. So the hospital was able to provide them with a crib as well so the babies can sleep safely. And then this one, I'm hoping this video plays, but this one, some of our children's hospitals, they've had to get creative during the pandemic. They're not able to provide the in-person events that they are used to providing. And for example, Valley Children's Hospital, they applied for a grant last year from us, which would be used to support an in-person child safety seat event. They applied way back in the spring and the event wasn't going to be held until September. So they were pretty hopeful that the event would still happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. So they had to pivot and they had to figure out, how else could we get this message out? So they came up with a series of safety videos that were produced with grant funds from Kiwanis. And I wanted to share just this one video real quick to kind of get a feel for what they put together. So fingers crossed that it plays.
Hi, I'm Shayna, registered nurse at Leon S. Peters Burn Center here in Fresno, California. I'm here to talk to you about preventing scald burns. A scald burn often happens from steam or water. and commonly happens in the kitchen. Today, we want to talk about a few tips on how to stay safe in the kitchen, starting with the 3 to 5 foot rule. The 3 to 5 foot rule reminds us that we need to stay 3 to 5 feet from anything hot, including the stove, toaster, microwave, and oven. So how far exactly is 3 to 5 feet? If you take your arms and spread it out from fingertip to fingertip, it's this far away. You should always be at least this far away from anything hot. So the second 3 to 5 rule is to allow hot liquids to cool before drinking for at least 3 to 5 minutes. This includes tea, hot chocolate, soup. So remember, before drinking or eating, let those cool. And another good idea, when drinking hot liquids, always make sure to drink them in a cup with a lid to ensure they don't spill. Kitchens are a great place to have fun, even explore, but it should never be done alone. You should always have an adult with you when in the kitchen. And here's a few tips for you grown-ups. Always use a hot pad when grabbing anything hot from the stove or from the oven. And then also remember always to use the back burner to make sure little ones can't grab the pot off the stove. So remember, it can happen in a flash with just a splash, but by following these few safety tips, you can have a fun and safe time in the kitchen.
So again, they use grant funds to produce a series of videos. So far, they've produced 5 injury prevention videos, with the 6th one and the last one for this funding cycle to be produced in the next couple of months. They've posted them on their YouTube channel as well as Facebook and across other social media platforms. The first video that they released was a pedestrian safety video. And when they launched it, they put it across all their social media platforms, but they also shared it with a local elementary school during an assembly. So more than 600 kiddos were able to view that video just in the first sitting. They also shared it with the superintendent of the school district, so hopefully it's getting across to other schools. And I kind of took their lead and I did the same thing. I shared the videos with my daughter's school, and they're planning to share these videos during a virtual assembly this spring. Oops, sorry. All right. So, oh, and it should note too that the hospital, they've already indicated to me it's another round of grant funding for us. They'll be submitting their applications in the next month or so. And because we're still under lockdown in most of California, they plan to release another set of 6 injury prevention videos using Kiwanis funds. So another area that our hospitals utilize our grant funding for is in pediatric training. So our newest partner hospital, which is Kapiolani, again in Hawaii, they've received more than $127,000 in grant funds from Kiwanis since they joined our partnership in 2012. The most significant grant that they were awarded was a grant for $25,000, and they used that one to develop curriculum for an an education program for pediatric burn care. And why they did that is because prior to this grant, only children under the age of 8 were treated for burn injuries at Kapiolani at the hospital. There was no other hospital within Hawaii which treated burn injuries. So let me say that again. Only children under the age of 8 were treated for burn injuries at Kapiolani, and only if they lived on that island. So what that meant was any child over the age of 8 or any child on a neighboring island, if they received a severe burn, they were then airlifted and taken to the mainland to receive their care for their burns. So that meant that they're taken away from their family because the family can't come with them on the plane. They wake up in a strange place. They often didn't have family with them because the family couldn't follow. They just simply didn't have the funds to follow with them. So again, imagine suffering this trauma. You're a child, and now you're in this unfamiliar place. You've got strangers all around you. And just imagine how unsettling that is. So with this grant, the hospital was able to develop this curriculum so that any child under 18 could be treated at Kapiolani, and children on neighboring islands would also be treated at their hospital or brought to Kapiolani now. So there was no more traveling to the mainland, no more being treated without their loved ones around. Okay, another innovative program is from our partners at Loma Linda University Children's Hospital. And they applied last spring for a grant for a program called Code STEM, or Students Training in Emergency Medicine. And the idea of this project is to bring middle school and high school students age-appropriate medical training through a simulation-based mobile training unit. The mobile training units provide middle and high school students with basic knowledge of how to deal with possible and typical traumas that may occur on a school campus. The training would include traumas such as a car accident, a person down, and a school shooting. The goal of this project is to introduce trauma care to a broader audience and to promote diversity in medical training. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, again, most of schools in California are still virtual, so they have not been able to launch this program yet, but it's kind of on the back burner, and they are anticipating and planning for being able to launch it this fall. Also from Loma Linda, even before the pandemic, staff at Loma Linda recognized that a lot of their classes that they were teaching, they were seeing a decline in attendance from the pediatric emergency medical professionals. And they couldn't understand why that was. I don't think they really ever figured it out, but it was still critical information that they wanted to get out to the medical professionals. So they brainstormed a way, how do we get this information out? And they figured, you know, we can do this online. So they wanted to create several online modules. But again, they didn't have the funding to purchase the equipment necessary to record and promote these education training modules. So having been familiar with Kiwanis, Dr. Tim Young, who really came up with this idea on his own, asked the hospital to submit a grant application to Kiwanis so that we can perhaps fund. And we approved it, and we provided grant funding, which then allowed Dr. Young to purchase the equipment necessary to record, provide the good lighting, the sound, and everything that you need to produce a professional video. He launched a website that has all of these resources on the website. And if you look up here, there's a little tab that talks about Kiwanis, and it gives credit to Kiwanis and the Children's Fund for making this possible. In addition to the website, all of these resources are pushed across all of their social media platforms. So you can look up the Gurney Room, which is what this is called, and you can follow them or like them or subscribe to them on various social media platforms. And then the final area in which our partner hospitals use our grant funds is to purchase the specialized pediatric medical equipment. Renown Children's Hospital, one of our partners, this is how they primarily utilize our grant funds to purchase equipment. This equipment here was one of their latest purchases, and each one of their equipments, you know, get a little tag here that indicates that the equipment was donated by Kiwanis. So this particular machine is called a Sonocyte ultrasound machine, and it's used in their pediatric emergency departments. With the scan of a wand, the ER technicians are able to provide current information. So the wand then illuminates the internal organs and the circulatory system and provides vivid detail to the first responders and the medical personnel. This is really important because a lot of times a child, when they're in a trauma, well, anybody for that matter, they're not communicative. Even if they're conscious, they can't communicate where it hurts or what they're feeling. So having access to this equipment allows the first responders to quickly identify any serious needs and get the appropriate care right away for the child. And then another area in which we spend a lot of our our fundraising is providing safety items at a subsidized cost to our Kiwanis family. These include helmets and helmet stickers and protective gear. We have child safety seat stickers, which I'll focus on a little bit later, as well as some of the safety booklets, the Keeping Safe booklet we talked about from Oakland Children's Hospital, and some electrical outlet covers. I'm going to go through the rest of this presentation, and then I'll turn off my background, and I'll actually show you some of these supplies that we provide to our Kiwanis family. And then another area in which we spend our fundraising dollars is in providing grants to both our Kiwanis and our SLP clubs. These grants are for new projects which seek to prevent and or treat pediatric trauma. A lot of clubs will use these for bike rodeos, child safety fairs, or even water safety events. These are just a few examples of projects that were funded with PTP grants. So the criteria is that they have to be a new service project. We don't fund fundraisers, but truly a hands-on service project. And the project must prevent or treat pediatric trauma. We have other grant programs available if your project doesn't fall under this criteria, but specifically for this, it has to address trauma. Our grants provide up to $2,000 in matching funds to our Kiwanis clubs, or up to $500 for our SLP clubs, and they don't need to submit a match. It's just straight $500 to our clubs. We also provide an option for a division that's working together on a service project. They can apply for a grant, and that grant would be up to $5,000 matching. Or sometimes you can't get the whole division on board. So if you get at least 2 or more Kiwanis clubs on board on the same project, they too could apply for what we call a multi-club grant. And that would be up to $5,000 in matching funds for their project. Here's a few more examples of how our clubs utilize these grant funds, like rodeos, poison prevention, trauma dolls, or our PTP bears. And again, I'll share those with you in just a moment. So with COVID, I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, our fundraising and more importantly, our service projects have really gone downhill. We're so used to providing in-person hands-on service that some of our clubs are struggling to find ways to address their community needs. So for PTP, it's the same thing. There's clubs that are struggling. Well, I can't have an in-person event. I can't host a bike rodeo. So what can I do? We've been encouraging a lot of our clubs to focus on household injuries. With everyone sheltering in place at the home, we've seen an increase in pediatric injuries in the home. You've got, unfortunately, parents that have to go to work and leave the children at home unattended. Or if you have everyone at home, if they're not an essential worker and the parents are working from home, now you have this whole family like literally stepping on each other in the house. So unfortunately, as a result, we've seen some injuries rise during the pandemic. But as far as where to start, I always encourage clubs to kind of assess your community, find out what the needs are. In the case of the pandemic, you definitely want to follow local guidelines. Things are starting to open up in California as they are across the nation. But in the beginning, everyone was on severe lockdown, so it was really hard to get out there and provide service. But still, go out there and find out where the need is and find out how you can tweak an existing project, perhaps, and get creative. So for example, one of our clubs, the Orangevale Fair Oaks Club, which is a new club for us in Calneva, they recognize that, the children were bored, they're sitting at home all day long and they needed an outlet. They needed to get their energy out. So they collaborated with another agency in town and they purchased scooters and bike helmets, which they then distributed to kiddos across the community. It was a great first project for them. Like, as I said, it was a new club. So they were just thrilled to be able to get out there and help during the pandemic. Another one of our clubs, the Santa Susana Club, they got together and independently, they all created handmade blankets, which they then distributed to an existing organization that they had a partnership with. And the blankets were used to provide comfort to children that were suffering from a traumatic injury. Some other ideas for projects while we're still in lockdown is to address some of the common injuries, whether it's during a pandemic or not. There are certain injuries that happen more often than not. Those include falls in the home. There's a lot of poisoning in the home. Children are very curious little creatures and they love to touch and taste and feel items, especially when they're colorful. Ensuring that children have a safe sleep environment is always another good project to include. And then as well as TV tipovers or furniture tipovers in general. There's a huge issue right now with children and furniture and TV tipovers. So that's a project that a club could definitely undertake, providing education, providing literature, working with local school districts or working with food pantries even to disseminate this literature out through the community. And here I have another video I wanted to share with you. This is another easy project that a club can do. Just sharing this video on your own website or your own social media page to get this message out here. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Pick out all your jammies. Good job. Those go in the very top drawer.
Top drawer.
So you see a lot of those tip overs, they happen just suddenly. And in the case of the one with the two little boys, mom was right there when that happened. So it's something that just could happen at the blink of an eye. Fortunately, none of the kiddos in that video were severely hurt, so that was good to know. And then finally, oops, let's go there. Finally, I wanted to touch on our service leadership programs and the fundraising that they do on behalf of the CNH Children's Fund for a pediatric trauma program. So like everyone else, they, kind of their fundraising has been stunted because of the pandemic. They're used to going out and raising funds and having auctions and penny wars, and our key clubs in particular, they gather in the fall every year at a local amusement park, and they host a fall rally where they bring in literally tens of thousands of dollars just at that event. Last year alone, our SLP members raised more than $250,000 for a pediatric trauma program. So now fast forward to the pandemic and they're stuck and they can't do these usual projects and programs that they do to raise funds. So our Key Club governor came to us early on and said, would you be willing to set up some type of online fundraising platform for us? And we said, absolutely, we can do that. So we zeroed in on GoFundMe charity, which is very similar to GoFundMe. It's just has charities in mind when they set it up. And we set up a fundraiser campaign for them, which would then allow them not only to raise funds, but also set up that team fundraising that they are so used to doing. They like the competition, little friendly competition amongst the divisions. So on this campaign, you can go in and each division, Lieutenant Governor was able to then set up their own team campaign, and now they're still kind of having that competition between them. Since we launched GoFundMe in last June, I think it was, we've raised nearly $43,000 just using this platform. In addition to using it for Key Club, we've used it for a couple of our smaller fundraisers as well. We had a couple of Kiwanis pass away this year that were very instrumental with our SLP programs. And so we started a couple of campaigns, or one was started for us, to raise funds for memorial scholarships. So we have 2 new scholarships that we'll be presenting this year as well. We had a virtual wine tasting in September that we use this platform to fundraise for as well. So overall it's been pretty successful for us. And then I'll leave my contact information up here for a bit. I do want to go ahead and exit out of this and turn off my background so I can share some of the PTP resources we talked about, and then open it up for questions. So let me do this. All right, give me 1 second while I turn off this background.
I will put Jennifer's email in our chat as well.
Thank you. And there it is, background. Okay, there. All right, so I wanted to share with you a couple of the resources that we talked about earlier. Can you guys see this? So these are our protective gear. We have elbow pads. It's a three-piece set. It's elbow pads, knee pads, and wrist guards. And those are great for the kiddos that are in wheeled sports. We have bicycle helmets, which we provide at a subsidized cost. We have a little sticker, safety helmet sticker kit in here. You can see that. It's a shield sticker. And that one with the check mark goes on the outside of the helmet. So a first responder, if they see that, they know that inside the helmet, there's going to be safety information about this child. And this information will include the child's name, any medical conditions that they might have, any allergies that they might have, and then contact information for their adult. But the most important piece, again, is their name. Just having the first responders know the child's name so that they can address the child by their name just brings all this comfort to a child. Similar to the helmet sticker is our car seat sticker. And this one, this is an older one, but it's since been redesigned. and it's written in English and Spanish because we have a huge Spanish population in our district. And like the helmet sticker, it includes information for the first responder so that they can identify that child and take proper measures, especially if there's a medicine allergy, so that they can be sure to avoid that. And again, just knowing that child's name provides comfort so they can interact with the child. We also have child ID kits, which are great to hand out at community events. We have goodie bags. This is a bicycle goodie bag that has like a little safety booklet inside, along with some crayons. And we have our Care Bears. These are great to distribute to local law enforcement or to your ambulance providers. Oftentimes, if children are involved in a collision in the car, they might not be hurt, but they're certainly traumatized by it. So just having this little comfort piece for the child as they're, either going to the hospital or just being, until they're picked up is a good thing for them. We also have these outlet covers. And what's unique about this one is, I don't know if you can see the little holes in here. This was designed by a father. So a standard outlet cover usually is just a little circle. You take it out of your outlet when you need to use that outlet, say you're vacuuming. And if you're not careful and you set it down somewhere or you set it within reach of a child, that child can now put it in the mouth, and it provides a choke hazard to that child. So this father recognized that is a choke hazard, and he came up with this design, again, with the two holes. It's not a circle, it's much larger, it's an oval shape. But if the child somehow manages to still get this in their mouth, those holes will at least provide them with the opportunity to have airflow so that they're not choking on this. What else do we have? This is the safety booklet I was talking about that was created by Oakland Children's Hospital. It's English on one side and Spanish on the other. And it's, very simple tips and tricks, lots of artwork in here that would engage the child. We also have a custom book that we put together called Smart Moves with Kiwanis. And in here, it's got several different injury prevention topics, again, in English and Spanish, an activity booklet for the children, and a little certificate on the back. And finally, I wanted to share with you the sleep sack that Oakland Children's Hospital uses. They purchase with Kiwanis funds. So it's a little Velcros. The child goes in, it zips from the bottom. So you put the child in the sleep sack and then you Velcro them up, and that provides them with that little wrap that makes them so comfortable when they want to sleep. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Wow, some great ideas. I did put in the chat, I put Jennifer's contact information, I put their website address, a few things I put in there for you, which you'll be able to get, but I'd like to open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions, if you, let's see, can you raise your hand in Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, so let's raise your hand and we'll pay attention to, so Barbara, go ahead.
Okay, my question is not about the content. I'm just wondering if you can send that PowerPoint to Sue and have it posted along.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
That is great. Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And well, I guess I do have a content question on the safety measures that you take to help the families with preventing drowning or getting into the pool. What do you do? What kinds of things do you do there?
So in California, they require pools, new pools, I believe now. They're very specific on the, what's not the vent, the section at the bottom. I don't have a pool.
It's the filter cover, yeah.
Thank you, that. So new pools have to have those covers. We recommend that you have layers of protection. In the drowning prevention community, they refer to them as ABC layers. And that is, you're gonna have a fencing around your pool. You're also gonna have alarms on the doors that lead out to the pool. When you have the fencing too, make sure you remove furniture and anything that a child can climb on, because they will do that. They will climb to get over the fencing. And then also everyone in the family should learn CPR so that should something terrible happen, you at least can provide first aid while you're waiting for the first responders.
That's great. Is that written anywhere that we could?
It's not in this PowerPoint, but I can include it when I send an email to Sue.
That'd be great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I don't see any hands up, but if someone has questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question. I did see on their webpage there is a place where you can order supplies.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that everything is branded for the CNH group, but I'm sure that at least if you wanted a sample, you could be able
Absolutely. We can do that for
to
you.
get that sample, and they would be able to help you out with that. I know they have sent a couple things to me that I've forwarded on to other clubs and other members, but you know, I always tell people there's no sense to reinvent the wheel, right?
I
If
was just
somebody's
gonna
got
say
something
that.
that works.
Yep, our safety seat sticker actually came from another district, the idea, so
Exactly.
you know, it's not ours.
And I know there's a lot of project ideas on there, and when you think about it, there's all kinds of stuff there. So Kathy has a question. How many clubs are in your district?
I think we're about 400 and something. Yeah. Dick Olmsted, are you still on? Do you know for sure?
We're right around 450, I believe,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you.
And does the district have a expected, or I should say a recommended contribution made per member? How are your funds raised?
So our funds are raised primarily by our members. And we do, like the International Foundation, we do have an annual campaign that celebrates our anniversary. We call it Founders Day. And the suggested donation is $5 per member. We also have lots of recognition opportunities, something called the Distinguished Service Award for Kiwanians, or the Community Service Award for members of our community. And our newest one is the Youth Service Award, which recognizes those Kiwanians that provide mentoring and work with our youth. So those are all donations straight to the CNH Children's Fund. And for that, you get a plaque, which we encourage you to have the governor present during his or her official visit to your division or to your region. And then we have other fundraising. We have an annual initiative. We have a new initiative called the Yes Initiative. And because we're Kiwanis and we love acronyms, YES stands for youth, education, and support, which are our three main areas: youth being our leadership training, education being our scholarship program, and support being the grants that we provide to our clubs. And there's various giving levels, both for individuals and for clubs, for the YES Initiative.
Jen, what is your annual budget?
Our annual budget, that's a good question. I'm not a numbers person, in and out. So
Ballpark.
yeah, ballpark, I'm thinking 300,000. I'm thinking scholarships alone, we annually award about $100,000 in scholarships.
Okay.
Leadership training, right now it's down because they're not meeting, but when they're meeting in person, leadership training is another $75,000 to $80,000 annually. Our partner hospital grants could be anywhere upward to $100,000 to $120,000. So yeah.
And then grants, I take it you have grant cycles?
We do. Well, actually, no, we accept grants with the exception of partner hospitals. The partner hospital grant is a cycle. So we encourage them to start submitting in December. They need to have it submitted to us by the end of March, and then we award it by June. But our Kiwanis clubs and our SLP clubs, you can submit a grant anytime during the year. We have a committee that reviews it. It does not go to our board, so we don't have to wait for a board meeting. So the
Okay.
committee meets teleconference or now via Zoom.
Great.
So,
Other questions, thoughts? I'm sure I'm watching people as I can see them writing, taking lots of notes, you know, and you think about how a project can, just from an idea that you had today, you know, the blankets. I love the blanket idea, the sack, right?
Yep.
Great idea, but also the aspect of having the books, right, available, that the guides and stuff like that, and knowing that you have those relationships with those hospitals.
Yep.
You know, that they're willing to build, to continue to build those relationships.
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of our clubs, they'll use some of the literature or, you know, the stickers. They'll actually go to their local farmers market, and they're allowed to set up a table or a booth at the farmers market where they can distribute that information. Or community festivals. Our Kiwanis club annually does a community festival, and we set up a table there and distribute the information via that route.
And I noticed one of the pictures that you had in the PowerPoint actually had a division listed on it.
Trying to think what
So
picture that
I
was.
think it was Division 5. I think it was Division 5 is all I remember. I'm like, oh, so that was something that was done specifically. You had talked about the grants,
Yep. Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
going to a division,
Yes.
you know, versus an individual club.
Yep. Yeah.
Can you tell us again what the 3 areas of where the donations and grants go to?
For pediatric trauma specifically, the 3 areas are the safety items that we talked about. And again, we provide these to our Kiwanis clubs at a subsidized cost. Additionally, if they're applying for a grant and their project includes distributing these materials, they can use our grant funding to purchase these materials, so further helping them out. But the safety items, grants to our Kiwanis clubs, our SLP clubs, and our partner hospitals, and our partner hospital, sorry, is the 3rd area.
I'm typing away.
Yay.
Grants,
Thank you.
grants to partner hospitals.
Yes.
So, Greg, there's a question. Greg, are you still with us? Greg Smith? Did I see Greg still with us?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, so Greg, this is a question from a Michigan person. So I'm gonna let you understand or explain this. The question is, what am I missing or don't understand is how is their children's fund different from the Michigan-based project fund?
Well, okay. So our fund, first of all, our foundation is a private foundation. So and then secondly, the charter of ours is only it's donations to 4 specific hospitals, and specifically to the Child Life program within those 4 hospitals. So so the money doesn't go anywhere else, and when you raise money, that's where it goes for those specific things.
So the money that the Michigan district in their initial charter was to specifically support the children's life departments, so to say, the child life departments of those individual hospitals. So those funds are used by the hospitals themselves, whether it's they use it for whatever the hospital.
Well, it's specifically for child life. So,
Correct.
for instance, the like in I think University of Michigan hospital, they do music therapy,
Right.
and then Detroit Children's I think does art therapy, things that make the child stay in the hospital much more normal, or even the families visiting as well.
Tony tells us that Never Shake a Baby has been a district info initiative for some time. A lot of districts do the Never Shake a Baby program. I've seen that in many districts. I'm just checking through the chat here to see if I'm missing anything else. Okay, did I miss any hands? See, this is, you get all these people on here now, you're like, okay.
Where do I go?
Where am I going? Where am I
Looks like they're
going?
all on one screen, so that helps.
They're good. Okay. Other questions for Jen? This is great. I think that we often, listen and we hear about these things, especially when we go to the, conventions and stuff, where you'll hear about, get to know people around the world. It's like, oh, what are they doing? And you think about these ideas, and that's why I go back to the fact is, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? It's there, and I'm sure that if you had an email, Jen would be happy to chat with you or talk to you. Future plans. Somebody wants to know what your future plans are.
Our future plans are we would love to expand our pediatric trauma program and take on more partner hospitals. Right now, again, we have 6 hospitals, and it's a stretch sometimes to fund their needs. There are some years where the total dollar amount that they request is more than our budget. There are some years where we have to just not fund a hospital altogether. We have to rank them and choose, or we choose to approve all of the grant requests, but at a lesser dollar amount. So we would like to have enough funding so that we can meet our current hospital needs and then expand the program to add additional hospitals.
And that is the hardest thing to do, to have to either cut funds or tell someone you can't fund them, having been on the Kiwanis International Children's Fund.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's the most difficult thing to do. Let's see here. Daryl's got his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say that in Georgia, our online club has taken on child safety things as its signature project. And each quarter we're all over the state, and we go to the daycares around us to share information about child safety and asking them to share that with their parents. And I think that that's just an awesome use of an online club, because literally we're not like a local club. We're all over the state.
Yeah.
And so we can reach a lot more people that way. So if you have online clubs where you're at, something to think about.
Barbara has a question. Barb, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. My question is, and I thank you, Sue. My question is, does geography play a part in your choice of partner hospitals? Are you trying to have them all over the district, or?
We are, and now, I mean, we feel fortunate that we finally are. It took us several years before we branched out of California. And now we have at least one hospital in each state. Geography is part of it, but also we want to ensure that the hospital has an established injury prevention program on board, because that's really our major focus. Yes, we fund for equipment as well, and we have fund for their trainings, but we really want to focus on preventing the injuries. So right now, we would prefer them to have an established injury prevention program. So.
And the acronym, yes. Youth Education and Support, correct?
Yes.
You were right, Nordia, you got it. See? Okay, let's see. Did I miss anybody? Oh, do you have, what is your relationship with the Kiwanis Family House? For those who don't know about the Kiwanis Family House in California.
So for those that don't know about Kiwanis Family House, that's a separate organization, separate entity. It's literally a house. It's established right next door to UC Davis Medical Center, and they provide temporary housing to families whose children are receiving medical care, long-term medical care at UC Davis. They also have a large parking lot where they are able to allow families with trailers or motorhomes to come in and stay in their motorhome, again, right next door to the UC Davis campus. So our relationship is, much like another Kiwanis club. We have actually provided grant funds to them as well. So that is an exception. Again, we only grant to our Kiwanis clubs, but we have made an exception several times now to grant funds to the Kiwanis Family House. Most recently, we helped them furnish some new rooms. They went through a renovation, so we helped them furnish their rooms. We helped them, they were upgrading their fire equipment and the fire doors throughout their facility. So we provided funding for them to be able to renovate those safety things. And then there's another grant recently, I can't remember. It was to establish, I think it was an outdoor area, but we provided funding to them as well.
Another great place, if you have an opportunity to go out and visit, the Kiwanis Family House is amazing. And I will tell you, the time that I was out there, there was actually a family from Michigan that was actually staying in. It was like, they're like, well, we're from Michigan. And I'm like, what? And you start talking, but the family was out there vacationing and wound up, they were there at the, so it really comes full circle when knowing that just like our our foundation in Michigan, every one of the counties in the state of Michigan has had a child at one of our 4 supported hospitals, right? And it's always had people like, well, we don't have kids there. Well, you do in one form or fashion, but we have, records that show there is someone there, just like, I mean, when a child when there is an injury and accident, no one's worried about where you're from. It's making sure that child is taken care of.
Yeah. And similar, and obviously not as far as Michigan, but Kiwanis Family House is about 2 hours from me. And you think about, they're in Sacramento, so they must only help, children in that area, and they don't. And I learned 2 years ago that my son's, one of his teachers, 25 years ago or whatever, her daughter was a patient at UC Davis, and she utilized the Kiwanis Family House. So it's literally, somebody
Right. All right. With that, I don't see any other questions on the in the no hands raised. A lot of thank yous to Jen for your information. Very informative. Very great presentation. I think.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'd like to know, do you partner with any DMC prevention program? Well, the Detroit Medical Center programs in Michigan?
We do not. We focus in California, Nevada, and Hawaii. I don't know if there's a similar program in Michigan.
Okay, yeah, we do have a program there. I'm actually a car safety seat technician, also provides safe
good.
sleep classes and
Mhm.
packing plays and car seats before the pandemic. But since the pandemic, it's been really hard to get
Yep.
it, get the merchandise.
Yep.
So would you partner with an organization to maybe provide car seats and helmets and things like that?
Well, again, we partner with our hospitals here in our district. So our
Okay.
focus is Calneva. Yeah, sorry.
But they may be able to give you,
Okay, thank you.
but
I'm
she may
trying
be able
to
to give
get
you some
there.
insights on purchases,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
May be
Yep.
able to help,
Okay.
make those connections.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are
Absolutely.
just as important, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Is,
Right. Yes, for
who's
sure.
buying quantity. So
Yep.
Okay.
a lot of things like that happen. So
Okay.
So I'll send you our helmet vendor and a car seat vendor that we use.
wonderful.
Okay.
We'd be happy to share that with
Okay.
everybody. So
Okay.
Okay,
wonderful.
thank you. I'm Minnie Davis, so make sure I'm on the phone though, so make sure that I get it, please.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Well, Jen, we want to thank you for being with us again this evening. Great information. Great. I think the biggest thing is we catch all the ideas, right? That's
Yeah.
the biggest idea. So
Yes.
with that, we will call it a night. I will get this recording up and made available on our Michigan District of Kiwanis Facebook page, as well as the Michigan District webpage and anywhere else we can put it. And then we'll make sure Jen has the link so she can send it around to everybody.
Mhm.
And we'll get all the information that we receive out to everybody over the next couple days. And with that, we will call it a great Thursday. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you next Thursday night for our discussion with John Griffiths on meetings in a virtual world. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye-bye.
Good job.
Have a good night. Thank you.